So in this video we're going to be looking at the router. In this case we've got a 1/2 inch plunge router which can be used for grooving, for rebating and putting mouldings on our timber or sheet materials. If we look at the side of our router, we've got a specification plate which will include our voltage, which will also be indicated by the colour of plug we've got, in this case yellow, which indicates we're 110 volts. We've got our watts, we've got our amps, and it will also tell us the revolutions per minute that our chuck will be spinning at. Also on our specification plate, it is telling us that we should read the manufacturer's instructions before we use this, or certainly be competently trained in it. It also has a double insulation mark, which means this machine it is insulated on the inside, and we also have a non-conductive casing on it, so if it does become live, we won't get an electric shock. So the features on this router are: we have an on-off switch, which we're able to lock on for doing continuous work. We have a lock switch here to allow us to plunge and then lock in position. We have a depth adjuster to allow us to adjust the depth of our plunge. On this side we have a fine depth adjuster which also has a stop, so if we wanted to do repeat tasks with a certain depth, we can use our stops on here to plunge down to that particular depth. To the corner here we've got variable speed control. Underneath is a plate that will tell us the range of RPM that our variable speed control will do. We have a facility to put dust extraction on the router to allow us to clear the dust away. And underneath we have a socket for putting in our guide bushes for when we use staircase jigs or any other jigs. We also have the side fence which will fit into corresponding slots inside of our router to allow us to set a width for a groove, for example, in our timber. What this router has as far as the chuck goes is a 1/2 inch chuck. We can use smaller shank cutters in there, such as this 6mm cutter, but what we will need to do is use a collet reducer. This is also available with 9mm shank cutters, and you'll obviously need to get a 9mm reducer to fit within our 12mm collet. So here's a range of router cutters that we have: straight cutters for doing grooves and rebates, as well as moulding cutters to put shapes on our timber. With these straight cutters, they will need to be used either in conjunction with the router fence and or a jig and the guide bush. With the cutters with bearings on, they can be used on their own and will follow the shape of your timber, putting on the moulding or groove or rebate within your timber. So PPE that we should be using with our router, well, we should have our boots on at all times within the workshop. What we will also need is hearing protection, whether it be ear defenders like these or in-ear plugs. We'll need safety glasses, just in case we've got any timber and or cutters that break within there that come flying out. We may need to use a dust mask, but the best solution as far as the dust and the shavings that we're going to get is to actually use a dust extraction system. So now we're going to look at installing the cutters. On the shank there should be a line up to which the cutter should be inserted into the collet. What we should never do is insert all of the shank into the collet. It should only go up to the line that indicates that it should do. The cutter we insert into the collet, we have a locking pin to lock the spindle on our collet, and then we need to do up our locking nut, finger tight, and finish it off with the spanner. Now it wants to be tight, but not too firm, otherwise you struggle to get the router cutter back out again. For this next part of the video, I'm going to demonstrate using the router with a staircase jig, and for that we're going to need to insert the 30mm guide bush in the base plate of our router. The guide bush will follow the outline of our jig. What we need to allow is the distance between the outside of the bush and the cutter when we actually make our jig. So here we have the housing that we've just done for a step. For the next demonstration, we're going to do a rebate in the side of our timber using our side fence. So with the rebate, I've set the fence to the required width that I need it. I've also set the depth stop to the required depth that I need to cut. So here we have a rebate, and you may notice that when I was rebating and pushing the router along, we were cutting from left to right. In this part of the video, I'm going to demonstrate using a cutter with a bearing on it, a following bearing. What the bearing would do will allow us to do away with our fence, and the bearing will actually follow along the side of our timber, and in this case, putting a Roman OG moulding to the side of our timber. When we're using our router, we need to push the router in the direction that the cutter's will be moving. And if you look at the base plate of any router, there should be an arrow on there indicating which way your spindle is turning.